My wife has to be giggling as she watched that thing. I have a reputation at my house for unhandymanness. When the children were young, I ordered a package and it was delivered, and I was opening it and the family gathered around, and one of the children, I think it was Lane, asked, "What's that?" And Joy said, "That's Daddy's new toolbox." "Daddy's new toolbox? What for?" And then she explained that that's so that when somebody comes over to fix things for Daddy, they'll have tools to use. Just seems kind of ironic, really. Well, we're so glad to be here. I want to thank Ethan for giving me the opportunity to come back and talk to you again. That was a gracious thing for him to do. Do you know what it feels like when the people you love the people you love? To see you and the Magnuses together, it just seems right, like a marriage made in heaven, and I'm so grateful. I want to say a word of greeting to the people who are in the Christian Life Center. I wish I could be there too, but I wish you all of God's blessing, just as I wish for the people in this room. It's a special day. Ethan did not know this when he asked me to speak today, but that woman I just mentioned to you, Joy, has been my wife today for 57 years. So now you know I really am a patient man. And you also know that I'm accepting invitations for lunch. I'll be eating on my own. When we were young, we couldn't even imagine living to be 57, let alone living together for 57 years. And we have been traveling together now this last year, and we're still friends. It just feels so good. We know more about each other than we used to because there's no escape, you know. And it has just been glorious. And it's a good time for us to be given this particular assignment, made to be missionaries, because we've been on the mission field, lots of mission fields during this last year, and we've gotten to see some missionaries associated with this church, which has been fun. Andrew and Kate Owens have been worshiping with you for a number of weeks now. They're working up in Scotland with Global Scope, as is Meredith McKinney, also from Johnson City. We saw Jeff and Monica Fife on the trip, Leonard Thompson, who has been supported by this church. And of course, we spent some time with Kay and Steve Carpenter. It's just been great. We left you on May the 10th, spent a few weeks in the Pacific Northwest, our original home, and then we left the States. And in order, we've been to Mexico, England, Ireland, France, Armenia, Australia, back to Oregon for a funeral, India, New Zealand, Chile, Uruguay, and Spain. Quite a year. And much of the time, we've been unable to speak the language. We haven't known the customs. We've embarrassed ourselves. And we've managed to be offensive in just about every country that we went into. And some of you are following us on our blog, and you know the stories. Now, in America, I have a pretty good sense of direction, but I discovered when we were down under in Australia, I lost it entirely because the sun down there is in the wrong place, and it can really confuse you. Our worship experiences have been a challenge sometimes as well. We didn't know the liturgy, when to stand, when to sit, when to kneel. Didn't know the songs, even songs in our own language we didn't know. We were often uncomfortable in church. And if we hadn't already been Christians, there would have been precious little possibility that we would have become Christians. Not because there was anything wrong with the service or the sermon or the people, but it was just all foreign to us. As it is to many people who live in Johnson City when they try to go to church. It's all foreign to them. Now, we went back to some of the churches, and you know why? It really wasn't about the sermon, and it wasn't about the music. It was about the kindness of the people. We learned that you can be in a small group of a couple dozen, and they can still manage to ignore you. You can be in a large church of hundreds, and they make you feel at home. It's the kindness of the people. So, I'm delighted to talk about this subject today, made to be missionaries. Now, there's a sense in which that theme is misleading and untrue. We were not originally made to be missionaries. We were made to be anything but missionaries. We had to be remade, actually, to be missionaries. It's when we became Christians. It's when we were born again, born of the water and born of the Spirit, made to be what we were not naturally made to be in the beginning. And when we think about missionaries, many of us, I think, just kind of push back on this whole idea. Not a missionary, not me. I'm not qualified. I'm not dedicated enough. I'm not spiritual enough. Because all of us think of missionaries as more spiritual than we are and more dedicated than we are, better than we are, and maybe a little bit odd, and who wants to be odd? So we come to this sermon, and this sermon says we're all made to be missionaries. We're all, if you please, that is, if we're followers of Christ, we're all made to be different from the world of which we're a part. We are, in fact, sojourners here. We are, as a fact, strangers, aliens. And that's hard for many of us to do, because what we want to do is what comes natural to us. Some of us here are old enough to remember a song that came out in the 1950s in the musical Annie, Get Your Gun. It's simply doing what comes naturally. Here are the words. I wish I could sing it for you. You would not want me to sing it for you. Folks are dumb where I come from. They ain't had any learning. Still, they're happy as can be, doing what comes naturally. Doing what comes naturally. Folks like us could never fuss with schools and books and learning. Still, we've gone from A to Z, doing what comes naturally. Doing what comes naturally. I love the song. I don't love the idea. Because what comes naturally for us is looking out for ourselves. Desiring to be the big dog in this dog-eat-dog world. Taking the easy way, the path of least resistance. The if it feels good, do it path. We'd like to sing with Frank Sinatra, and what's more, I did it my way. That's all very natural. When we dream about our future, when we're asked what we're dreaming about, we dream in dollar signs. We dream about having enough money so that we can do what we want to do when we want to do it. You see, the truth is we weren't made to be missionaries. Not in the beginning. But there is a sense that we were remade when we became Christians, because God wanted us to be something different. Not just natural, maybe even infused, if you please, with the supernatural, born of the water and the Spirit. So we were reborn into a bigger world, to be bigger people, doing bigger things than just looking out for ourselves. So, the Bible does speak of us Christians as a peculiar people, God's own people, doing what comes unnaturally. So what happens to us when we're remade? Well, if we're remade to be missionaries, then we will be expected to meet the same criteria that the missionaries that we support meet. So let's talk about what makes missionaries different. I pointed out the first difference, and that is that we are not satisfied with being just natural. There's a kind of discontent about us. There's a recognition that the world that we are in needs fixing. It's not what it ought to be. And though we sing the chorus, "This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through," we do not sing that in the sense that I'm just passing through to try to get out of here as quickly as possible so that I can escape the mess. Here's the difference. It's natural to want to escape the mess and have anything to do with it and keep ourselves clean from it and get away from it as quickly as possible. That's natural. What's not natural is to be called to the mess, to the problems, to the need. And as we read the Scriptures, we come across that again and again. As Christians, we are in fact to rescue the perishing, to feed the hungry, to give drink to the thirsty, to clothe the naked, to clean up the messes and not just run away. As Doug Priest, who's been my boss with Christian Missionary Fellowship, likes to say, we Christians are to get our hands dirty on behalf of this world. For missionaries, it's not then just about looking out for number one. The profit motive is not the be-all and end-all for us. We can't convince ourselves that everything is okay so long as there's money in it. Now, when we were originally made, the world revolved around us. Look at any baby that you want to mention. You don't see many examples of unselfish behavior with babies. They want to be held when they want to be held. They want to be fed when they want to be fed. They want to be changed when everybody else would like them to be changed too, I think. Kind of ruined that one. But babies claim center stage. They're the stars of their own shows. Watch the family do what the baby wants. That's just natural with babies. But some babies never grow up. They're still the stars of their own show. They still want the world to revolve around them. And they're the problem and not the solution. They live and they die as they began, still demanding that their needs be met without concern for others. That's why we had to be remade, all of us. For missionaries, by the way, it's not just about my tribe. It's not just about me, I've said, but it's also not just about my tribe. Some of us congratulate ourselves. We're naturally tribal. That means we go to great lengths on behalf of our families, our friends, people close to us, people we identify with. They're our tribe. Many politicians understand this. And so when we go through a political campaign, they do all they can to appeal to our needs, our desires, and those of our tribe. But they never appeal to us to take care of people in other tribes with other needs. So, if you listen to the language, whether we're talking foreign policy or our medical policy or any policy that requires me to give up a little bit for the sake of somebody not in my tribe, they know if they want my vote, they've got to appeal to my selfishness. It's only natural. That's why we have to be remade, to be less natural. Joy and I have been so inspired by some missionaries that we've been with during this last year. Many of them went to the field not even knowing the people they were going to. They just knew that they wanted to go to the field. They were answering God's call, and they wanted to be able to do some good for others when they got there. So they have sacrificed. And this VBS theme says, we here at home are to be like them, only like them here where we live. You see, for real missionaries, it's definitely not about being comfortable. Our travels have been so good for us. I don't know what we've done, but before we left here, we sold our house, and we sold our cars, and we gave all of our furnishings away to the kids and the grandkids and our friends. All we have is what we travel with. We travel with a suitcase apiece, a carry-on apiece, and what the airlines call a personal item apiece, and that's it. It's absolutely a challenge. We have two different sizes of suitcase, I might mention to you, by the way. There's the feminine suitcase and the masculine suitcase. And you know, when I wasn't going to get off on this at all. I didn't even mention this in the other sermons. But when you check in at the airport, you know, they put your suitcases together so that they can average out the weight. And as we've traveled over this year, my weight has got less and less and less. As hers has got more and more and more. And I just feel so virtuous. And that's not a part of the sermon. For real missionaries, it's definitely not about being comfortable. We have been uncomfortable in just about every country, sometimes because of our mistakes, other times because the standard of living isn't what we were used to here in Johnson City. I can summarize it all with just one incident. We arrived in India. We were chatting in the home of our host. They had a little guest place for us to stay in, and they were telling us about preparation for our little guest room, and that's when they mentioned the cobra that they had killed in our bedroom the day before. Let's just say that when you crawl into bed at night, you look around. And it takes just a little while before you really relax and go to sleep. We know what it is to be uncomfortable. But being uncomfortable is part of what we're called to, honestly. Remember the words of Jesus? Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. Now, carrying a cross is not comfortable. It's the opposite of comfortable. And here we hear the Apostle Paul saying, I become all things to all men, so that by all means I might save some. Even if it makes me uncomfortable, I'll change for their sake. The whole focus is on them. So as a Christian, I'm not primarily concerned about my rights, about my routines, even about my church. It's about them. I told you when I was here before, and this has guided me for a lifetime, but the church is the only organization I know anything about that is organized primarily for the sake of the people not yet in it. It's not about my comfort. So, on this subject, listen to the Apostle Paul in this wonderful passage. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. For just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. If we're distressed, it is for your comfort and salvation. If we're comforted, it is for your comfort, which produces in you patient endurance of the same sufferings we suffer. And our hope for you is firm, because we know that just as you share in our suffering, so also you share in our comfort. Now notice in this incredible passage, Paul doesn't promise, the Bible never promises, that if we'll follow Jesus, we'll never suffer again, never be put out again, never have to do without again. Instead, he promises that when the tough times come to us, and they will come to us, God will fortify us and see us through. Give us the strength that we need to prevail. More than that, he'll show us how to gain strength through our own sufferings and be able to reach out and help others get through theirs. This is how missionaries think. Now, if we take all this seriously, then we'll understand something fundamental about how the church operates. For missionaries, that's us now. It's not just about keeping the doors of the church open. I can still hear from my first ministry, and I've heard it every time since, somebody will say, as we're talking about reaching out into the community, well, the church door's open, they can come in if they want to. Why would they want to, if that's your attitude? You don't hang around people who don't want you, who don't make you feel welcome, who don't reach out to you. It just used to drive me crazy. I don't think the people who said that knew how snobbish they were sounding. You know that movie, The Field of Dreams, and the motif that runs through that, if you build it, they will come? No, they won't. No, they won't. They're not attracted to a building. Now, the building is a tool and it's very helpful, but they're not attracted to the building. They're attracted to the people. We went to a church, an Anglican church, interestingly enough, in England, because the day before, when we had arrived in that little village, we walked around and looked at the churches, and we saw this Anglican church, and we walked into the building, and I said to Joy, this church is alive. You know how I knew that? They had taken out 3 rows of back pews to put in an area for the children. I said, there's hope for this church. So we went to that church, attracted not by the building, but by what the people in the church had done to that building for the sake of others. Well, I could go on and on this. By the way, there's another bit of fiction that sometimes Christians feel. If I just live like a Christian out there, people will want to come. They will want to be like us. Come on. Who lives that well? Who behaves that well? I never wanted to put a bumper strip on my car because I was afraid people would see how I act out there. No, that doesn't do it. Now, we are called to be out there, but we are called out there to be a blessing. We used to sing a hymn when I was young, and I haven't heard it for years, and I'm so sorry that this one died, but here are the words. Out in the highways and byways of life, many are weary and sad. Carry the sunshine where darkness is rife, making the sorrowing glad. Give as 'twas given to you in your need. Love as the Master loved you. Be to the helpless a helper indeed. Unto your mission be true. And then this great chorus, make me a blessing, make me a blessing. Out of my life may Jesus shine. Make me a blessing, O Savior, I pray. Make me a blessing to someone today. Joe and I have been paying a lot of attention to the choruses that are being sung in churches these days. We don't know most of them. So we actually read the words, which you don't do if you think you know the song. And in almost every church we've gone into, we've been concerned because the songs are all about me. Lord, bless me. Lord, protect me. Lord, give me this. Lord, give me that. Well, it's natural. But we need to be unnatural. Here are a few scriptures that help us to understand what motivated Jesus. He was, you remember, a missionary. When Jesus landed, this is Matthew 14, when Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. Here's Matthew 15. When Jesus called his disciples to him, he said, I have compassion for these people. They've already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. I don't want to send them away hungry or they may collapse on the way. So he fed them, thousands of them. Here's Matthew 20. Jesus had compassion on them and he touched their eyes and immediately they received their sight and followed him. Matthew 9 started out this way. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. And so it goes on. He came with compassion. He commissions us in compassion to be compassionate. It's not natural, I know, but it's what we're called to be. May 28th, I sent a birthday greeting back to Soshin in India. Shouldn't have been necessary. She shouldn't have been alive. 70 years ago, somebody dropped a little bundle on the doorstep of a bungalow in India where a couple of American ladies, missionary ladies, lived. They opened the door, they found the bundle, opened the bundle, and found a little baby, not 3 pounds big. They took the baby in. She was so weak, she barely alive. They fed her with an eyedropper in the beginning. They nursed her around the clock. they gave her life. When Joe and I were in India the first time in 1975, we met that little baby. By that time, she was 28 years old. She'd grown up, not perfect. Her body was bent. She suffered for a lifetime from that poor start. But at 28, she was working with those missionary ladies, helping them to take in other throwaway children. When we were there in January, there she was, 69, almost 70, still helping those ladies. Now not the same ladies, but the next generation of American missionaries, still helping them to take care of throwaway babies.
Michael? Lila?
No, her name is Soshin. Isn't this modern electronic age wonderful? I preached two Sundays, and I taught 2 weeks worth of classes, and I never heard from above that whole time. Well, in all these years, that mission has rescued and housed and fed and educated over 1,000 children, because somebody cares about throwaway children. It's not natural. It's not natural to give yourself away to other people's children. It's just what missionaries do. And we're remade to be missionaries. If you look around, by the way, you'll find Soshin in Johnson City. Lots of them. For them, life is hard because people are hard. That's just natural. People just naturally look out for themselves, for their tribe, for their country, maybe even for the members of their church. But their generosity stops there. That's only natural. What's not natural is to take in other people's children and raise them. You see, what I'm trying to say is that doing what comes naturally lets little babies die, lets the hungry starve, lets the sick languish, lets the lost perish. Doing what comes naturally lets the cobras take over. And that's why we needed to be remade, you and I, so that we'd be unnatural, so that compassion would rule in our hearts as it ruled in Jesus' heart. So here's our prayer. Out in the highways and byways of life, of Johnson City life, make me a blessing. Please, Lord, don't let me be satisfied just doing what comes naturally.